Welcome to the CPTM Smart Partners Hub, and in particularly, welcome today the first webcast after the most successful CPTM annual general meeting and think tanking and activities which took place at the beginning of this week on 30th and 31st of October. It is my pleasure to introduce our chairman, Tan Sri Omar, who is still with us at the CPTM Smart Partners Hub and therefore with you, and who will try to show what was the meaning of the interactions that CPTM members and smart partners had at the hub or virtually in their own countries connected with the CPTM Smart Partners Hub at the beginning of this week. It is a very important message, since in the next few months there will be a lot of activities, a lot of interaction, which as members and smart partners you will need to be part of it. So, Omar, it's not very often that we have you in this very casual mode, but we usually know that you are hands-on. You are hands-on as a first science advisor in Malaysia. That's the reason why you gathered all of us hands-on around you in trying to put together the basics of the science, technology, innovation policy and framework in Malaysia, and everybody else followed you. Now, I always wondered, why did they follow you? One is that you're very short. Secondly, you're very hot-tempered. If people don't do and follow the same style as you do and synthesize quickly, you put us right. So I wonder, why did people follow you? And it's now almost 30 years. And it isn't that they followed you, you followed them. And that's again another issue. Why does that happen? Or why did that still happen? It's a very, very distinct and very unique contribution that all of us, with you still at the helm of CPTM, we are still making. So that was again very clearly evident Monday and Tuesday this week, both for the annual general meeting, where you made a special message, and also for the launch of the new rolling panel, as we call it, about spotting signals of tomorrow. So what we were talking yesterday and today, after the great interactions that CPTM members had, was actually spotting collective signals from now on and taking them forward within the CPTM and the movement. So this morning we were trying, as usually, typical Omar, to synthesize in a very, very, very distinct way the way forward. So, Omar, could you, as usual, enlighten us, because there are so many things that in initiatives are taking place, and so many signals we've got on from the panel. So what do we do with all this from now on? Please.
Thank you, Naila. Hello, everyone out there who might be watching this particular webcast. We have been actually brainstorming on how to put the CPTM and the smart partnership message to CHOGM 2018.
In April, yeah.
Yeah, and what would be the approach to catch the attention of all the members of the Commonwealth? And we are thinking of something that might be coming from the leaders of the developing Commonwealth, who have been strongly supporting us and who believe strongly in the benefits of smart partnership. So I thought we can start by saying that how do we secure a harmonious, prosperous, and common future based on the Chogam's common challenges and focus, and there are 4 of them. They talk about a more prosperous future, a more secure future, a more sustainable future, and a fairer future. So we thought those 4 focus of Chogam 2018 can actually be translated towards a harmonious, prosperous, and sustainable Commonwealth. So from the perspective of CPTM and Smart Partnership, we can say we are proposing a kind of a position paper on securing a harmonious, prosperous, and sustainable common future. Well, we can say this is an open source initiative, or we can say this is an initiative from the developing Commonwealth, looking for participation by all Commonwealth countries. Now, if we can accept the idea that we are actually looking for harmonious, prosperous, and sustainable Commonwealth, let's look quickly at what are the requirements for harmony in a community, in a nation. Harmony will come if the basic needs of the people are met, if their quality of life are improving all the time, and if there is economic growth and equitable sharing of the benefit of economic growth. And of course, this is all within the realm of good governance and responsible government. So those are elements that is required to support harmony. Then what about prosperity? Prosperity is, of course, economic development and equitable distribution of wealth. What about sustainability? Again, it's about good governance and it's about sustainable practices. So within that context, we can briefly outline the evolution of the activities of CPTM in the context of smart partnership. And then we can zero in on current activities of CPTM, what you might call smart partnership in action. And there are 6 or 7 inclusive initiatives that we are working on. And around the AGM, we had been discussing on 1 or 2 of those initiatives. Data and statistics. We touched upon quality and standards. We touched a little bit on vision and science and technology. Those are the activities of CPTM. Then we can say what are the benefit to the developing Commonwealth of those inclusive activities that we have done. And then from there, heads of government from developing countries can say this is something that is beneficial to the developing Commonwealth, and that should be made into a Commonwealth a program to be supported by all Commonwealth heads of government and to be funded for the next, maybe into 2020. So that can be the framework for the kind of position paper that we are going to, that needs to be prepared and to be submitted to friendly heads of CPTM or smart partnership for government, and maybe one of the position papers to be prepared to be submitted to the coming smart partnership think tanking dialogue that will be held in Uganda in February. So that is CPTM's activity in the context of Commonwealth and of Shogam 2018. I have been thinking about what we have done within the context of smart partnership, how that relate to this big thing, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. And if you will recall, there are 17 goals on the SDG. The 17th is about partnership, and it is partnership. Let me just go back. Actually, the goal 17 of the SDG is about cooperation to develop, to share, and to apply technologies and social organization. And what we have been doing within the inclusive framework of CPTM is actually partnership and cooperation to develop, to understand, and to share technologies, and also trying to promote social organization. So we are relevant not just to in the context of the Commonwealth. We are relevant in the global context in support of SDG. Mm-hmm. So Mahela, that's what I think my contribution, my input to the.
So in other words, you are calling the smart partners to get their thoughts and all their.
Well, I mean, those out there who are listening, you may agree or disagree, but if you agree, maybe you can provide inputs to Mahela on how to improve on the framework that we have just discussed. Yes.
I thank you, Omar, but I think this is more or less an articulation of a policy at a Commonwealth level, and which emerged from the bottom, more or less, since we were talking about Honorable House Siku was here, and the minister from Lesotho, the Minister of Prime Minister's Office, since 2013, when the gathering of the largest heads of government and ministers and private sector and so on group from the Commonwealth at the Smart Partnership Dialogues wished to focus on what is leveraging technology for socio-economic transformation. And based on that, since 2013, many networks around various operational issues that bothers central banks in relation to financial inclusion for leveraging technology, quality and standards bureaus, national statistics, national visions, frameworks, all that took place since 2013 based on the leaders' commitment that they have to do something about it based on this smart partnership movements platform, as we call it, which is an open source type of platform, but a human one rather than a digital one. What it emerged, which was surprising, it emerged that the digital landscape evolved alongside this landscape of socio-economic transformation. And so it wasn't kind of with the networks in the smart partnership movement, they weren't able simply to follow the ins and outs of financial inclusion and progressing among the central banks. They had to.
Yeah, you can put it the other way. The digital transformation actually, if there is capacity to harness or leverage that, is actually part of meeting, part of supporting socio-economic transformation.
Or as it was somehow articulated, but we need to go more, even at the beginning of this week, there were these issues of what might mean distributed wealth or distributed growth beyond or including the inclusive growth, because the capacity for to be developed for achieving distributed wealth, meaning from the level of, for instance, the Minister of Lesotho, who was here, Mr. Honorable Minister Tsolo, mentioning about how can we use the clay to employ so many people in a particular part of Lesotho. Lesotho being a country which needs to be jumping away from least developed countries because of their resources and everything else that they have. So this distributed wealth or distributed growth does require capacity related, which is enabled to deal with that.
Sure.
It's not just inclusive, because that's a political, eventually, rhetoric. It's beyond that. It's action-based and operative. So this is the greatest, probably, progress that has been made in the last few years. But the question is, how do we go? How do all the networks go beyond that now that is being realized that data would kind of be harnessed, can be harnessed, or could be harnessed for socio-economic transformation, but expressed the outcome being securing harmonious, prosperous, sustainable.
I view data as another important enabler.
Yes.
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 So data is not an end in itself. It is an enabler. So if we use that judiciously, we have the capacity to actually gather and analyze data and get the thing that we want. That becomes a very, very important enabler. So building capacity for that is something that developing countries has to seriously consider, and not just be caught up into the jargon without actually translating into what need to be done in the country to take advantage of that.
Could you reflect a bit, Omar, based on your experience on doing things, in addition to articulating for so many years in Malaysia and so on? Could you reflect a bit about how could all these things in relation to data, the capacity, specific capacity to be built around it in relation to the socio-economic transformation in countries like Lesotho and Namibia and Uganda and so on, how could that become, and what can you do to make use of it, a national priority, a key national priority?
Well, we can go back to the issue in Lesotho about the existence of a natural resource,
such as clay,
such as clay, and how that might now be used in the present context for whatever uses. So you need information, you need data to find out what products that requires clay as raw material, not necessarily just what traditionally we know about tiles and bricks and all that. You need to have data about or any special
market.
Any special market for that one, or any other uses for any other products, even any other, and for the Lesotho's clay, are there any data or any information about special content or special special elements within that can be useful for other things.
But,
But
Omar, you've been put in a position by the Prime Minister, when you were in Prime Minister's office, that you've been told, here is an item in a budget, you have 2 months, do it. You see, this is what actually the Lesotho Honourable Minister said. Well, I might not be interested because I don't have time that the data might and so on. And in any way, to raise capacity in data, it'll take time. Politically, I don't have time. So there is this thing where probably, to start with, if you have to, the smart partnership framework, the networks are available, and this is what actually you did. You remember when we came to you, you gathered us, and you could have the research priorities done in 2 months' time.
This is what the open source is all about, right?
That's it.
Yes. So I mean, you have a problem, and you do not know where to go, where to begin. Then you go to the smart partnership network.
But not as a consultancy.
No.
Not as an investment only, because then it's the end of it.
The smart partnership network is a good example of open source for ideas. An example of how the smart partnership. Now we're talking about smart partnership as a platform, and it is now looking back, or using the present jargon, it can be said to be an open source platform. So to give an example, when President Museveni wanted to get some ideas of how to deal with this new resource that they have discovered in Uganda.
Actually, that was in 2013.
Yes. How to deal with oil.
Tanzania.
There were so many. When oil was discovered, all the big companies were coming in to say, to do the usual thing. Leave it to us. We'll do everything and we'll give you the royalty. So you wanted to know any other model of how to deal with this. So we had a session here. There was a real think tanking session on this, and I remember he was given the various options, various advice. And,
how not to.
Yeah, and an example that I thought he liked was how Petronas deal with that in Malaysia. The idea of a profit sharing, rather than just being a passive partner for some big companies to come and do everything, and you sit down and you just receive the royalty. And what Petronas did was, of course, profit sharing, but getting involved into the activities. So now they become a company that goes out to other countries to help in exploration, and in other activities. So that was one example. There have been other areas before where leaders need first of all to understand what is happening and what are the experiences of countries within the smart partnership framework, the experiences that can be shared. So we are about our platform is about getting information from subject specialists and getting and the sharing of experiences. That's how the smart partnership movement actually helped to create, help to promote learning through sharing.
Well, I suppose, Omar, from today onwards, we have November, December, and January, February, and then by March, April, all this initial articulation of you, synthesis of what has been, what transpired this week, probably needs to be put into a strategy overall, and which may form, as you said,
I think
a common position.
What I can do, I'll put
As usual,
I'll
yes.
do the framework, and then we can invite our people to fill in. Then eventually we will finalize that.
Particularly those who are involved directly in the
Yes.
initiatives, we may probably be able to identify or call on 6 or 7 from each initiative, one who is able to reflect on this.
That will have to be a supplement, not part of the main document. Because people look at the document, if they're too wordy, to whatever it is, they get switched out. So this is normally you have the document which should be very attractive, and then the detail can be an attachment if people want to know more.
I suppose what we mean by kind of executive summary or whatever it is,
Yes.
it has to be in a more strategic way articulated this year, because it's too valuable what the movement and the CPTM
Sure.
has. And it's not an executive summary of what it is in the document as usual. It's something different. And I was just reflecting while you were talking about, you see, we are very much a group of networks. The Smart always was the Smart Partnership Movement in CPTM, and that's how it emerged. And we do know that because of that, networks are hyperactive. They never sleep, as we said. The networks network all the time. But one thing the networks are suffering of is, and they are vulnerable, is they cannot have a strategy as is being perceived as a strategy. And therefore they are vulnerable. While the main thing, the main strategy that they refer to is the strategy of this leveraging the value of knowledge and data, very much anchored into real situations, into various initiatives and interactions among them. That, which will have to be put together and costed and timed for about a program, more or less, for the next 2 years, that is not a detail. That is a kind of, the detail of how you do it is a separate one, but that is something which shows that it is an action-based articulation of a policy. Now, something which the networks usually can't do, but there is where CPTM as an organization can do for these networks. So CPTM can say that for the Commonwealth this is a policy, that common policy.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a very, very kind of important distinction of trying to see what an organization which conventionally works as an organization can do and what networks can do. And one without the other doesn't work. But thank you very much, Omar, and we wish you a very good trip and a very good year, 2018. But I suppose every week and probably almost every day we'll be online with you, and hopefully we'll thrash all this out. So thank you very much for sharing with us your synthesis, and I hope you're coming to the hub as much as you can, or you'd be allowed from home to be with us. Okay, all the best.
Thank you.